why is the West still #1 partner, the most important one for Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin, despite the fact that he's always saying the opposite is true. But actions speak louder than words. Let's take a look at the latest, the biggest political event right now, G20, here in Bali. There is a monkey forest and a temple right behind me, and I even prepared something for a possible guest. Monkeys are jumping and passing by, and yes, it's a bit loud here, but I believe this background is pretty nice. So G20 here in Bali. What does that mean for Russia and other countries? Hi there, my name is Nina, and I've been working over 10 years for the leading quality media in Russia as foreign affairs correspondent and analyst. And if we talk about big political events, I work at APEC, Asian Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit here in Asia, in Vietnam, at many NATO summits in Europe, and at bilateral meetings between Putin and other global leaders, both inside and outside Russia. So you'll see some pictures and some short videos from my trip here in Indonesia. So all my life I've been telling Russians what's going on in this world, and I believe this is pretty important, especially because the last years those topics have been censored, and at the same time I've been explaining to foreigners what's going on in Russia and why. And especially now, when this gap is getting bigger and bigger between people, between Russia and the West, I believe the worst thing that we could do is to block each other and to stop talking. And by the way, lack of expertise on both sides, I believe is a big reason for the disaster what's happening right now. So I was told by many friends, relatives and colleagues, you should start your own YouTube channel in English, and now I can say I tried and it didn't work out. So please support my very first effort, subscribe, like and share if you want to get to know more about Russia and post-Soviet space, both from within and as impartial as possible. G20, why is that important? So it's getting dark. I'm a bit worried. I should be on time. The 20 biggest global economies, Russia included, around 80% of global GDP, 75% of global trade, and around 70% of global population. So pretty important, right? But what we see, usually we see global leaders posing in national costumes for a photo, having a posh dinner, right, and making a blah declaration at the very end. That's what we see. But what we don't see is much more important. Those meetings on the sidelines, right? You have 20 cool guys in the same place. You can meet and negotiate important issues, and usually we see only the very last step. For example, two leaders signed an agreement, right? But there are many steps before that, and they're happening at G20 and at other summits as well, right? That's why this is important. Moreover, this G20 summit would be the first one, if Putin came, it would be the first one, the first big global event where he would be presented. But it didn't happen. Several days ago, we find out that he's not coming, and official reasons was his schedule. Bloomberg just before that reported that, according to their sources, Putin wants to avoid confrontation with other leaders because of Ukraine. So let's see what he's missing and what's important. So what did Russians say about that? Russian experts in pro-state media, so expertise was really low. There were several reasons. For example, why he didn't come, how they commented on that, right? So Americans and Europeans would kill him. Then another interesting case, it doesn't have any influence on his image anyway, because Joseph Stalin didn't travel much and he didn't have any influence on his image. So I was a bit worried when I read this argument, because maybe this expert doesn't know, but Joseph Stalin has at the very least very controversial image in global history. So I felt really worried why such examples are brought, right? And the most important reason, the environment is not friendly anyway, and half of those countries could be even aggressive towards the president. So for me, these arguments is like, the glass half empty or half full. Yes, half of the countries would be rather aggressive. So G7, Australia, South Korea, the European Union, right. But well, the other half are rather neutral or even friendly. To different extent, China, India, Brazil, Mexico, Indonesia, the hosting country, Turkey, and so on. The thing that I found out only here in Indonesia is that all these countries have their own set of reasons. So they have some important issues with the states, they disagree on some topics, but the thing is that Russia has nothing to do with that. Let's take Indonesia as an example. I crossed Java first, so I've been here for a while, and I crossed Java first before coming to Bali. And the good thing is that many people here speak basic or middle English, so I used every chance to talk to them. And from the very first day in Jakarta, I found out that many people are excited to meet Russians or are at least neutral, friendly. Right? And I asked them why, and it appeared that many love Russia and love Putin. So I started asking them why. I didn't share my point of view on that. I didn't want to disappoint them, right? But I started communicating and asking and found many reasons for that. Well, the biggest is local people said, we also don't like the West. And there are several reasons. So Indonesia used to be a Dutch colony for several hundred years, and there was a bloody war for independence after the Second World War. The Cold War didn't take that much place here, only the first leader, Sukarno, so there was a struggle between the states and the Soviet Union here, but then the second leader, Suharto, he had been ruling for 30 years and he was totally pro-American. So I'll just bring you an example. Nikita Khrushchev, Soviet leader, visited Indonesia in 1960, and then the next visit was only in 2007, Putin. So can you imagine, half a century, almost 50 years, nobody had been here. So the relations had been really low, I would say, right? So, and after that, another important reason, Indonesia is the biggest Muslim country, and many people said Iraq, Afghanistan, Palestine, right, the last 20 years, so they took it very personally. Indonesians are extremely religious, so I found Pew Research Center data, you'll find them in the description. So 98% of Indonesians say religion is very important in their life. And I found another poll. Indonesia has the lowest approval rating of the states in the region as well. So only 42% of local people believe that the states are playing an important and a positive role in the region. At the same time, you'll see now interesting pictures, right? You'll see that only 15 years ago, every second Indonesian thought that the United States are economic power, the leading economic power, but now in 15 years, that could say only 1 in 5 Indonesians. So you could see that decline. That's really sharp, right? So what I wanted to say, right, there's a set of reasons why local people in Indonesia believe that the West is not that friendly. There are other reasons as well. But what I wanted to say is that Russia has nothing to do with that, right? So the Kremlin hasn't worked on that for years now. And in that sense, it could have been a unique chance to present his agenda if Putin wanted to do that. Okay, so some countries are hostile, aggressive, but others are rather neutral or even friendly. And moreover, those countries have, literally speaking, billions of people. So this audience is just huge, and many of us people are ready to get those messages. So when you compare that, right, so we talk purely about information policy, public relations, right, in that sense. So I'm not discussing whether he has right to do so, to say something and so on. So I'm talking only about what I know professionally, information and analytics. So if the Kremlin did analyze that, definitely they would have used this unique chance to push their agenda, to talk to the world about what they believe is right? But they didn't do that. So, and in that sense, we see that the West is much more important still than the East, than the developing countries, and so on. Another important point is that we already had this turn to the East politics for over 10 years. Then after Crimea especially, when politicians said, okay, so the Western countries don't want to have us, so we'll go to China, to Vietnam, Indonesia, and so on, and we'll make our business there. But you also find this link in the description. I found a research made by a pro-state think tank in Russia, and even they analyzed that. Now the results of that policy for 10 years, and even they said that there are hardly any success in that. Now it's getting really dark. But the conclusion, the West is still be much more important than the East for the Kremlin, for Vladimir Putin. And when you read or see or hear any comments or speculations, for example, Russia and China making up something together like Boris and Natasha. So I would be skeptical about that, because G20 does show it doesn't work that way, and it's not a priority for the Kremlin, and most likely it won't be in future as well, because turn to the East politics has not been successful at all for all these years. Please share your thoughts down there. Ask any questions you may have on Russia, on post-Soviet space, not only political ones, but also about culture, about travel. I'm from Siberia originally, by the way, and I came to Indonesia from Central Asia, from Uzbekistan, and there are many amazing places you've never heard of, So I could share some experience with you, and please support my very first effort. Subscribe, share, like. If you speak English, German, Spanish, Scandinavian languages, or Russian, please write your comments in both languages, and I could reply in them as well. So please stay open, stay smart, and see you soon.